This is the Instant Speed Podcast. We're on episode 23. And yes, this one is brought to you by FABDB.net. It is your premier source for deck building tools, collection management, and simulated booster drafting. Upgrade your account at FABDB.net. Get access to all the features. Bring your game to the next level. FABDB.net. Today's guest is Matt Rogers. Yes, that Matt Rogers, the world number one, is going to be joining us. But first, we get to the facts. Not too many facts coming around this time, but there is a new Flesh and Blood product coming in April. Yeah, it was leaked and teased a little bit here in an article piece, as you can see right here on your screen. Basically, it's a 1 versus 1, kind of like a pre-con starter deck thing going on here, where the two heroes are facing off against each other. A nice balanced little 1v1. It's Rhinar versus Dorinthia, and the cool part about this is that both of the heroes are going to be given the cold foil treatment, and the weapons will be getting the cold foil treatment as well. Not too bad. That one's coming out in April of 2022. How about this, friends? Instant Speed Podcast has a Patreon. Yes, your support goes miles, friends, and we are very, 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 very thankful for all the support that we've got in the past 6 months since we started off on this journey, and we will never hide anything behind a paywall. I'm telling you, we want to make sure that you get the content, but your support goes miles. There's a lot of people in the back here that are pushing buttons and pulling levers to make sure that this show is as well produced and well put together as possible. Your support goes miles. There's 2 tiers that you can get. There's the standard producer tier and the friend of the show tier. I'm just making up these titles, but there's 2 tiers. The basic tier is going to get you your thanks, like our first 3 patrons. That would be Mitch, Andy, and Tiger's Den. So thank you for supporting the show, and you'll get your name in the credits. And the second tier, well, that'll get you a guaranteed shot at a Go Again question. So every episode you can submit a question, and we'll jam it into the Go Again segment, as well as you entry into our weekly giveaway for prizes and swag from BCW Supplies. Much like this bad boy here. Yeah, that's part of the prize pack. So every month we're giving something away to those tier 2 patrons. Thank you so much, again, for supporting the show. It means the world. How about the winner of the golden ticket? Yeah, ISP had a contest going last week where we were going to award 1 golden ticket to the Calling in Indianapolis. What does that entail? Well, it's basically free entry into anything you want. So the contest was out there. We got a bunch of entrants into it, and as you can see here by the video, no shenanigans. It was a 10-time randomization of the list, and the name that was on top after 10 randomizations was going to be the winner, and that winner was Austin Yost. As you see here, the video evidence. Just so you know, there's no tomfoolery. That's basically how it goes. Friends, no tomfoolery happening with our guest. That would be Matt Rogers. He joins us on the Instant Speed Podcast, brought to you by FABDB.net and BCW Supplies. Well, we're approaching that last chance for romance time of day, ladies and gentlemen, as the ProQuest season is slowly dwindling down. You maybe have another shot at the can here, but you need a list. Go to FABDB.net. I'm telling you, there's all kinds of great lists there that might inspire you, but you probably want to do it yourself, right? You want to get in there, get nasty, get dirty, get into that sandbox and start building. Create your own list at FABDB.net. Upgrade your account. Get access to all the cool features, collection management, booster drafting, but more than that, tweak and tinker with your masterpiece. Build the deck that you need, get the statistics on it, and start playing around. And when you're all done, go to the settings, print the list, send it over to your email, and then you'll have the cleanest deck list. Get prepared, upgrade your account. You will not regret it. The Instant Speed Podcast welcomes a true rock star, if there ever was one, in the Flesh and Blood world. Yes, he is the multiple-time champion, but he is also the world number 1 ranked player. This is New Zealand's own chosen son, Matt Rogers. Welcome to ISP, Matt.
Hey, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's it's exciting to be here.
Well, I'm glad that I can inject a little joy to your life here. I mean, you are in Las Vegas right now.
I am in Las Vegas. There is a lot of joy being injected right now. This is a cool place to be. Really, really cool place to be.
It's got to be. I mean, you were there at the very first calling in Las Vegas, right?
No, I actually wasn't. So due to COVID restrictions in New Zealand, I wasn't able to get over for the first calling. But I definitely made sure I attended the rest of them.
Okay, yeah, you were definitely there making a splash for sure. And you're going to be in, I believe you're going to be in Indianapolis. That's why you're in the States right now, right?
Actually, I'm in the States for a couple of things. So for PCG over here in Las Vegas, coming in and checking in with the staff and the management and kind of doing a little bit of work on some future initiatives and stuff that we're doing. And then I'm going over to the Gamma Trade Show in Reno next week. So that's like the Game Makers Association show. And then hitting Indy and then heading home from there. So
that's definitely a long journey. And you're going to be coming back, I guess, for Pro Tour. But we're going to be talking all about Pro Tour. We're going to be talking about PCG, everything over there. But the first thing I got to talk to you about, my friend, is, as always, anytime there's a first comer on the show, we got to hit a little bit about that origin story. You've got serious hero vibes to you, my friend. Everyone cheers for you. You're a fan favorite for sure, Matt. But we got to talk about a little bit about your origin story, how you got to where you are today with Flesh and Blood. Your humble beginnings in the card world, all the way up to being the world #1 ranked player.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. I guess I haven't actually been asked this question on stream before, but it's an interesting one, actually. Well, I mean, not super interesting, but it involves another big hero character that everybody will know, and it involves another card game, which I'm sure everybody will know. So I guess taking right back through school and uni, I used to play a lot of chess. I was very competitive at chess, and a few of the guys that I played chess with also played Magic, and just sort of casually, kitchen table style, I sort of they showed me the game. It was interesting. I got into it a little bit, played some kitchen table MTG, and then I lived up north of Auckland in New Zealand, in a smaller town where not a whole lot of things happened. But then there was a point where a man called James White.
I have heard of him. Yes.
Yeah, you have heard of him. Yeah. So he announced that he was coming up to Whangarei to run a little Magic tournament for us. And so for me and my small community of kitchen table players up there were like, "Oh, this is so cool! Like this person's gonna just come up to our small town and run this Magic tournament." So we all got to, order some better decks or some cards and stuff and put together and try to be competitive and stuff. James came up and ran this tournament, which I won, and I was very proud of that and very happy. And then James invited me to come and play some Auckland events. So for a little while we started to do some car trips up to Auckland for these events that James would put on. I'd come up and see him, and he'd sort of talk to me about Magic and competitive and all of this sort of stuff, and saw a little bit of promise in me. And we used to joke around behind his back and sort of call James Sensei and stuff. This was about like somewhere between 15 and 20 years ago. This is a long time ago.
Oh, wow.
So James pretty much got me into competitive Magic and kind of having a go at that and trying I started to play a lot of the regular events. I eventually moved to Auckland, became a very competitive Magic player. I represented New Zealand at Worlds 4 times. I played 11 Pro Tours and did quite well on the local scene, but never quite got there. I had some pretty good Pro Tour finishes. I went, I think 9-1 and constructed in one of them, but with not so great limited records, and then really good and limited with not so great constructed records. So I had a lot of near misses, but didn't quite make top 8 of a Magic Pro Tour, and it was quite hard to play that from New Zealand. It was sort of the changes that Wizards made it almost impossible to qualify for Pro Tours from New Zealand because we didn't have regional PTQs. You had to fly over. If you qualified for an RPDQ by winning a PPDQ, you then had to fly to another country, Australia, in order to play the RPDQ. So it became very hard to qualify once I fell off the tour. So I eventually gave up playing Magic, and then James had told me a few times that he was making this game and sort of talked to me about it here and there, but I didn't think too much of it. And then he sort of said that he was going to launch it. I'd been off Magic for a couple of years at that point, told me that it's he's really designed it to be a game where the better player would win the majority of the time, that it wasn't, the variance was going to be lower, and it was going to really reward hard work and skill and passion, and said that I'd really like it. So I thought, I'll give it a try. I'm keen to play some games again, and a bunch of old friends through Magic and through 10, 15 years ago and stuff, we're going to come out and try it as well. So I was like, yeah, really keen to get involved. At the premiere event, which was just before Welcome to Wraith dropped, that James was putting on, I turned up to that the night before and learned how to play, and met up with an old friend of mine from Magic days, old Cale McCreath. And I think him and I eventually ended up playing a set of 50 games.
Just 50.
Literally 50 games of the Ira Deck mirror throughout that night, recording every game. It was a lot of fun. I definitely got hooked from there, and kind of have been playing Flesh and Blood. Welcome to Wraith came out, and I got right in, and I've been playing ever since.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, it seems like a lot of players have a very similar background in terms of what card games that they've come from. But what fascinates me oftentimes is what other outside influences do they have that either leads them to Flesh and Blood or enhances their Flesh and Blood skill. And for yourself, you said chess. And we've had other players on the podcast, people like Dalen Mack, who have professional football careers, who use that discipline and kind of translate a little bit of that. And can you talk to us a little bit about how chess has influenced your skill set in terms of Flesh and Blood? What are the translations, or what can you take from being a good chess player to being a good card player?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is discipline and planning. So sort of thinking ahead, kind of eking out small advantages, and kind of setting up plays. I mean, just general game strategy, I guess planning and forward thinking is kind of the main thing. It does translate to any sort of competitive game, really, and especially kind of the pressure elements as well, of having to look at a kind of large range of decisions, and come to sort of your optimal line within the time pressures.
Right, and I mean, and ultimately, it's just a matter of strategy, discipline, practice, understanding game plans. 100%. You have a unique, well, I wouldn't call it super unique, but a very noticeable element to your gem ID, in that it kind of speaks to the fact that you have been there. You are one of the OGs in terms of how long this goes to. Kind of one of those situations where, like how old are you? Well, my phone number is 1 digit. That's how old I am. But your gem ID is just 4 digits.
Yep, four digits. Yep.
Whereas everyone else, I mean, like for myself, I have to have it like burnt into my brain. I don't know my social security number. I don't know my phone number, but my gem ID is essentially burnt into my brain. Like there's a limited amount of real estate in there that in order for me to remember that, I had to forget like 5 different birthdays. So
I mean, that's probably not the end of the world. You got calendars for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what the phone is for. But the gem ID is important. But yours is just four digits, and I always found that fascinating. Right? It's like
So I think that's a bit of a throwback to the old Magic days as well. Is that the very early adapters of Magic had low DCI numbers. Just a few digits. I think that was a cool little throwback that James wanted to do. So I think the people that got in maybe before Arcane Rising, so maybe just in Welcome to Wraith, the people that signed up have 4-digit gem ID numbers. So
cool.
There's not a huge amount of us. We used to grind at game stores with like 5 of us turning up and stuff for a little while for the old local armories and whatnot, and mostly just New Zealand and I think a few Australian players, but yeah, just sort of the people at the very start. So maybe of people playing today, there's I don't know, maybe 100 or 200 or something.
So
people
cool.
with 4-digit. Yeah,
it's so cool. But I mean, us 8-digit scrubs essentially is a nice sign. The fact that the competitive scene has been growing fairly steadily.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, even the calling season that we had last year, the Road to Nationals, the national season, and now all the callings that are starting to ramp up for 2022. There's a lot of players that are out there just playing the game. But furthermore than that, there's a lot of players that are improving. The existing player base that was there beforehand are getting
massively
better. Exactly. And that's what I wanted to inquire with you, because you being there, I mean, you're the world number one, and this is not meant to take anything away from you, but like the field as it was back then wasn't as vast and possibly wasn't as good. Not to say that you are not up to the task to obviously improve and adapt and continue to,
I'm washed. It's over. I'm holding on to this. I'm holding on to this thing for dear life. Hey, I'll hold on to this title as long as I can. I think Tarek messages me like once a week being like, I'm coming for you, and he sends me little videos of like, you're not going to be number one and whatnot. But
yeah, he always makes sure that he reminds me of the Montreal Canadiens score and the Leafs and how the disparity between the two. Like there's no catching up to Tarek for me, but he is nipping at your heels. But it's not just him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is only at my heels, though. I mean, Tarek's not going to take a big bite yet.
I mean, at the same time, you're a fairly tall dude, right? You're like what, like 6'2", 6'3"?
Yeah.
So he's at least at the very least, it's the heels that he has to get at first. But
exactly,
the field in general has been getting better, and I'm just curious in terms of your most recent tournament forays and getting back into the scene. Has there been a very noticeable increase in terms of the overall skill set of the players you're playing? Are those quote unquote gimme matches, or those matches where you're like, all right, like I know this much better than everyone else, so I can get away with some moves? Are you finding that just the more and more matches are becoming more and more challenging for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of the average skill has picked up tremendously, I guess, especially in the last sort of 6 months. And I think there's some real undiscovered talent out there. Even just this weekend when I played 2 American events, two Las Vegas Pro Quests. Managed to take the gold foil home in both of them, which was pretty cool. But a lot of these local players that I was playing against were just, I guess, I wouldn't say surprising me, but sort of like pulling off some very, very impressive strategies against me, I guess. I feel like I had some very close games, and there was some massive talent there, and I think we're seeing that more and more. Certainly at the calling I played at Nationals weekend, there was some incredible talent that I played against as well. So I do think, I mean, I know arrogantly a lot of the New Zealanders sort of claim that, hey, we picked this game up first, we're ahead of the rest of the world and whatnot, and for the most part I agree that was true for some time, but I think that gap has, if not fully closed, is very close to closing now, and I think that there is some talent all around the world, and there's some really, really, really experienced and tactical players coming out.
Do you feel like there's perhaps a target on your back, not just being Matt Rogers, but being the world number one? And when you're playing against certain players, like there must be a degree of, you're like that rock star, right? Like you're one of the, how do I say this? Like you're the most wanted player at the moment, right? Like like there's a bounty on you to a degree where there is clout in terms of, even if it's the first round of Swiss or whatnot, if you beat Matt Rogers, that's something that you can stick on your resume.
No, it's definitely cool. People definitely celebrate the wins, and it's a lot of it's kind of a lot of fun being that boogeyman a little bit.
That's a really cool nickname, by the way. I mean, we could definitely hammer that down, like the boogeyman.
Oh, no, let's not.
Okay.
I don't want to be known as the boogeyman. The boogeyman's scary.
You're Matt Rogers, man. You're scary.
I'm not. I'm not scary. That's definitely not my MO. That's not. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think there's definitely a bit of that, and it's a bit of fun, and as I say, target on my back. Like I get messages from Tarek like every week. Like, some people are trying to knock me down a peg. They're definitely coming for me, and I think that whole thing's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to kind of be one of the early adopters and be able to sort of be one of the better players early on in the game for a little while, and we'll see how long I can kind of hold on to that for.
He's ruthless, isn't he? Tarek is so ruthless.
Oh yeah, he's absolutely ruthless.
Like he is just he just finds his avenue, and he's like, I'm just gonna keep pressing this button until something explodes. That's the kind of dubious. So Pro Tour on the way. You'll be playing in the Pro Tour, and we mentioned we spoke about the field in general, and just but we spoke about the field from the perspective of just the global player base, and the global player base is not just expanding, but it's also improving. But what about the field of the Pro Tour? There have been so many Pro Tour winners. I've been to so many Pro Quests. And of the names that you've seen out there, what is your first assessment of this growing field of players who will be participating in this Pro Tour in New Jersey in May?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no point in even starting to name names here. There's so much talent that you're seeing win over and over and over across all of the countries, across so many of the ProQuests. But yeah, it seems like there's definitely a lot of teams that are coming together and a lot of groups and stuff that are really putting in the work that are doing really well. So I think Pro Tour, we're going to see something that we didn't see as much of in the early Magic days, where there's like 20, 30, 40, whatever it is, like groups of testing teams that are kind of coming together. I remember a lot of the Magic things, there was, kind of the CFB teams and the Star City teams and a few game store teams and stuff, but a lot of the there was kind of these bigger coveted teams. I think in Flesh and Blood, we're going to see that times 10. We're going to see a lot of groups of people that are figuring out some very advanced strategies across the board.
And in terms of the meta, I mean, as it is now, there's going to be no other supplemental sets or base sets or whatnot, expansions that are going to be coming out for this before ahead of the Pro Tour. So what we see is what we get, essentially, in terms of the cards. Not necessarily the meta or the decks or how they're developed, but the card pool is what it is. It's basically set in stone ahead of that. And your view of what the meta is currently, we've got this Triangle of Doom, this Viserai, Prism, Starvo trifecta that, some people might consider it as being not necessarily bad for the game in a regard, but people they get tired of things when they're not necessarily in flux. And the way that I usually approach this is, this is not something that is just localized to one card game. There's always the cream of the crop bubbles to the top. That's basically it goes, right? And the fact that we have 3 viable options, eliminating one would make everything completely worse. And if you hate Starvo or you hate Viserai or you hate Prism, eliminating one makes everything 100 times worse. And that what needs to be understood here. But in terms of what these 3 decks are, is there one in your assessment right now? And we can. When I asked out there to the audience and I went out to the community and I said, Matt Rogers is going to be on the podcast. Do you have any questions? I think that the lion's share were meta related and these 3 decks related. So you can we'll dig into them in the Go Again section as well, because there's a lot more specifics. But how about your idea of how this meta has developed since Everfest and where you might see it progressing towards?
Yeah, so it's actually quite interesting, really, how it's developed, because the triangle was sort of like, Prism beats Starvo, and Starvo beats Viserai, and Viserai beats Prism, right? But I feel like that has kind of mixed and changed a little bit, and there has been a bit of flux there. Like, I think, the Viserai decks that have built more OTK, those are the decks that were losing to Starvo more, and I think those are now kind of the best position decks against Starvo. Starvo was destroying the sort of aggressive Viserai decks because they just had so many blues and could kind of outclass them all the time. But now these more controlling Viserai decks are able to kind of switch that up a little bit. And I think before, Prism was absolutely destroying Starvo, and Starvo just didn't seem to have a chance. Well, now I think that Starvo's gotten some really good tools, and they're starting to win that matchup more now as well. So I do think that even within this triangle, things are constantly shifting and moving. So it has been pretty interesting. But I think my overall assessment at this stage, and it's still a little bit early to tell, but I do think that Starvo is quite good and is probably the best positioned of the 3 at the moment, but it all kind of depends on the strategies and whatnot. But I think the thing that the issue I have, I guess, with this format, and I know that it is something that you just touched on and said, well, we've got 3 decks or whatever, but I do think that Starvo and the way that that deck operates does push out a lot of aggro decks or a lot of other decks in the format. Like I was, I was testing Dash a little bit for this core lane, and I felt like I got it into a really good place. But if Starvo just reveals too many times, I just can't win. There's nothing I can do. And I kind of felt like that way for a few things like Lexi as well and whatnot. And it does lead me to sort of be like, oh man, this format would be so cool if we removed one of these decks, which is completely contradictory to what you just sort of said. But while I agree with you, in some aspect there, I also feel there's also that what if Starvo was removed from this metagame. Could it be really, really interesting? And I feel like there's something there. I feel like we're close to being a really incredible metagame, but maybe, just some of the unfair things that are happening in one deck in particular is kind of pushing a lot of the other options out.
I've always figured in certain regards, I mean, like Starvo at times feels like it could play control to a degree, and it could also play very aggressively. And in my mind, when you have the finger on both those buttons, you can pivot very easily based on your matchup, and sideboarding is not necessarily so much of an issue all the time. Whereas, if you're playing, let's say, if you're playing like an Earthbriar, a lot of the times the on-hit effects are really not that devastating, or you don't care. It's just vanilla damage. You just soak it up and you're good to go. Whereas the Starvo, with the Oakenolds, the Crippling Crushers and such, there is a massive penalty that you're going to face, which just completely locks up your follow-up turn. So trading damage to maintain momentum and maintain tempo is oftentimes just a Starvo style game. They're always going to win that one because you're playing at a penalty. So that leads me to this next question is, in your assessment, do you believe that perhaps there is any bans or erratas that might be on the menu in the short term ahead of ProQuest, or is this something that perhaps ProQuest is going to be seen as the snapshot, as kind of like the exhibit A of when Starvo's on trial, so to speak? This is the submitted evidence in terms of how it's going to be penalized.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the right solutions are. I'm certainly not one of those people that just says, "Hey, we need to just constantly ban things and errata things and stuff to just keep it balanced." I know that in any card game, it's almost impossible. With so many mathematical elements, it's almost impossible to have a balanced game. You do need bannings and whatnot to do it. But I don't think that should be that you should be kind of too trigger happy on that. That should be the first point of call every time. My true opinion of the last format was that the Briar bans really weren't needed at all.
I agree with you there. I thought the errata was probably just enough or to a degree, but I felt that if you, I don't mean to interject here, but just if you looked at some of the trending of future tournaments, because the part of this is the fact that there's no online client where you can just jam that there's a server that's essentially hosting thousands of games a day where this can get parsed out quickly. You need these major tournaments for the meta to evolve and take stock into what's going on, assess what's happening. And as we were continuing to progress, Briar was not just dominating the top eights like it was, 6 of 8, 5 of 8. It was starting to succumb to the players adapting, improving, and getting away from Briar to that degree. So I think that Starvo might be able to have the same effect if people can, start being able to counter it. So, but sorry, I didn't mean to interject, but with time, I think that Briar may have gotten a little bit of the rough end of the stick there, had time just sort of caught up to it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think there just needed to be a little bit more information and a little bit more things figured out. I think particularly with, Briar came out kind of early in the national season and in the middle of the point where people had already done a lot of testing and whatnot. And then after that, there was this time to really figure things out, but there was Australia and New Zealand nationals coming up. So all of the players that were focused on figuring the format out, it wasn't in their best interest to put that content out there or to sort of, put anything out there. So everybody was kind of focused in. And I feel like almost every team figured that format out. and we saw that in Australia and New Zealand Nationals with not a whole lot of Briar in the top 8, and certainly not winning those events or making the finals of either of those events. And I feel like, just that information didn't get out there timely enough, because the people that are focused on figuring that out and have the best abilities to figure that out, they either had something to play for, if they were in America or Europe or anything like that, they had nothing to play for. So there was no point in them figuring it out, that they just weren't incentivized to. And the people that were incentivized to kind of had to keep it under wraps. So, so I kind of understand that they made the bans. I do understand it. For the local scenes and stuff. But in my opinion, that format with Briar was probably the best format yet. I think that was an amazing format, and there was a lot of viable decks. I mean, there was 6 different decks in the top 8 of nationals, and all 6 of those decks were very, very viable in that format. And I feel like, you could play any of about 7 decks in that format, and win the tournament on a given day with any of them. So, I do think that, I guess I hope that we figure some same things out in this format for the Pro Tour. But I think there's also this outside thing. There is this potential outside chance, or something that I'm quite hopeful for, and that's that Stavo reaches living legend status.
So basically just climbs the mountain high enough that he falls off, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think so. I think that would make the Pro Tour really, really interesting if the format kind of switched up. And I don't know whether it needs to be a thing of like players need to test for both eventualities, or whether Stavo is going to be in there or whether he's going to be living legend if he gets really close, or what the sort of situation is there. But I think that the format without Stavo for the Pro Tour could be super, super interesting, and a cool way for people to kind of figure everything out again without a massive amount of information out there and a lot of viable options.
The most important part that I pulled out of that was that you considered the Briar meta the good old days.
The good old days. No. The crew meta was the good old days. Oh, welcome to Wraith Arcane Rising Crucible. Man, that's the GOAT format. That is the greatest format of all time. Those days were fantastic.
It was like that was like pre-chain, right?
Yeah, pre-chain. Yeah, chain was not good. I've enjoyed every format except that one.
So your assessment or your prediction would be that there's going to be no bans or erratas ahead of the Pro Tour.
I'm not so much saying that. So my assessment is that there's a possibility that Stavo becomes living legend, and it kind of depends, I guess, if they're going to like cram a few more callings in before the Pro Tour so that it can get points there. Because I think from ProQuest season, I think we're expecting him to get maybe 700 points, 600 or 700 points or something like that. It does seem like he's going to win the majority. There's 250 events. You get 6 points per event. So if he wins half of them, that's 750 odd points or something around there. So I do think he's going to get a lot of points there. And then if there's enough call-ins before the Pro Tour, it's possible he just scrapes over that 1,000 mark potentially. But I do think that there's something else that maybe LSS could do where they, sort of, instead of doing bans and erratas, they shake up the format by saying, I don't know how exactly they do it, but maybe they come out and say that, all right, Bravo is going to hit living legend status in the next couple of months. So what we're going to do is we're going to preemptively living legend him for the Pro Tour. So Pro Tour is going to be without this hero that is clearly going to hit living legend status within a month for the Pro Tour anyway. So let's start this format out without him, or something along those lines. I don't know if the right strategy for them is to cram enough extra call-ins in just before the Pro Tour so that he inevitably gets there anyway, or whether they do something like that and give the players the heads up to start testing this format without Stavo. But personally, what I would love to see, and what I think a lot of people would love to see, is a Pro Tour with a kind of slightly fresher format than something that has already been played right through ProQuest and call-ins and everything like that.
The way that you kind of assessed it and the way that you're predicting it to a degree here with the jamming in a few extra callings just to get it over the top, it's kind of like throwing extra feed into the turkey to the turkey before
Yeah.
Christmas to fatten it up so you could slaughter it on time. So
I like it. I like that. That's perfect.
that's kind of the analogy. It's like, throw some more grain in there, throw some other stuff. If Christmas is next week, we gotta it's gotta hit weight before we can eat it. So. All right, well that's a very fair assessment, and I'm really looking forward to it. Again, the fact that if you can go into a pro tour where everything's fresh, where everybody is in their own secret labs working on their spicy brews, so they show up and it's basically a crapshoot. That's the dream. Like, I love that kind of stuff.
I think so. Well, I think a lot of the Magic Pro Tours, were generally a number of weeks or month or two within a new set release. So it was always quite interesting. I think you want a little bit of freshness or a little bit of change just before a Pro Tour, because then it becomes so much more exciting what people are going to do. Like, if you have a Pro Tour that's the same format as a bunch of call-ins and Pro Quests, and then on the Pro Tour, everybody just turns up with the top, 3 or 4 decks. It's so much less exciting to watch. Whereas if people turn up with all of these unexpected things and new and fresh and exciting lists and strategies and everything like that, it's just it's something to get really invested in as a viewer, right? So I think it'll make for a way cooler event.
Hey, as somebody who doesn't have any pro experience or such, to me it's all about making good TV, man. And like that,
it's got to be part of it. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, part of the song and dance is the flash and bang of the spectacle, right? And the fact that if the top 8 is just fairly bland, I mean, it's hard to inject a little narrative to keep people interested. Ultimately, it's the players in the top level play that dictates the entertainment, obviously. But I'm with you, man. It would be nice to see things.
We are your circus animals, that's for sure.
Come on! This right after the slaughtering of the turkey analogy. So.
I 100%. Like, if your top 8 is 4 Starvo, 2 Prism, and 2 Viscera, it's like, at that point, and they're all the known deck lists. At that point, everybody's like, well, we know how all these play out. Like, is there much point in watching the games? Like, we know that with this deck list, this is going to beat this, and this is going to beat this, and this deck's probably going to win or whatever. Like, it's just it's so much more exciting when it's new and fresh and unusual, and you're not 100% sure what's going to happen. So you definitely want to watch the game, right? Like,
basically, I mean, you need a hook. And after the players, the names that are there, I mean, the hook oftentimes is the spicy brews that are there. So I'm with you, man.
100%.
It'd be nice. Now, playing cards is not just your only form of, I suppose, and not just hobby, but you've also started your own card grading system, your own card grading company. So talk to us a little bit about Premier Card Grading.
Yeah, so Premier Card Grading, PCG, obviously we're a card grading company trying to take on the big boys in the industry, PSA and Beckett, and have a much more kind of focus towards TCGs. The people involved in that company kind of at the executive level are people that have been in the Pokemon industry for sort of 20 years, Magic industry, Flesh and Blood, Yu-Gi-Oh, Dragon Ball Super as well. Just sort of people that have been really invested and focused on the trading card game industry. So it's sort of has an aim to become your TCG grading company. I mean, we do have aspirations and we do have future initiatives and stuff where we want to branch out a little bit more, and potentially go past TCGs, do sports cards and much the like there. But yeah, we're sort of, bringing in a kind of industry experience and focus where we're all collectors ourselves. We're all people that have graded cards over the years in this industry, and we're all people that are very passionate about our games. So, by having a company where the exec team are people that are massively passionate about TCGs, particularly, I think that it's really a way to kind of get a bit more of what we want as collectors and players out of our games and out of grading our cards.
Friend of the show, I will say, a gentleman by the name of Brian Basoko, ProQuest winner and wrestling aficionado. Brian Basoko asks this. He asks, starting a business that has traditionally been dominated by 2 names, the 2 that you mentioned, what challenges have you faced, and has pairing with Channel Fireball helped you get past some of those challenges?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm the sort of person that I always I'm always kind of looking at things and thinking of better ways to do things. And really, it frustrates me and really gets to me when there's something that I'm passionate about that is just not really hitting the level of expectation that it should. And when I know that there's a better way and I can implement a better way, and we can kind of optimize our process and things around this and kind of meet people's expectations on things. So I always get frustrated, kind of being on the outside, and it gives me a bit of passion and drive to do it myself. If I truly believe in myself and the people around me that we can make things better and we can create positive change in an industry. So it was definitely that way with Card Merchant, and local game stores. So I started Card Merchant about 5, almost 6 years ago now, which is a local game store brand in New Zealand. But when I started it in a city with about 11 other local gaming stores, and everybody sort of said I'm crazy and why are you trying to do something that's been done so many times, and nobody else is doing it incredibly well. So why do you think you're going to be any different? Anything like that. And I sort of, I just identified ways to make positive change. And when I implemented that, it for lack of better words, it works. I really built a business around, around the community and the passionate people around it, and sort of listening to feedback and creating systems and optimizing, I guess everything from, sort of just the way we do things. And I grew that brand, from a tiny little gaming store to now the most recognized brand in New Zealand. We've got 4 stores. I've stepped away from that company now, but, to focus on PCG. But yeah, it was kind of the same sort of thing as, obviously that was New Zealand and kind of smaller scale, and looking at the bigger local gaming store brands and being like, we've got to take those on. And whatever as a small little store, but now we're the big guys in New Zealand. But I really think that it's been the same sort of thing with PCG. Obviously I'm a small fish and I'm literally over on the small island in New Zealand or whatever, but I truly believe that there are so many better ways to do things in this industry, and that people just haven't been, that the companies that are leading this industry just aren't meeting expectations. And I know that it can be done better, and I'm passionate about the industry and I want it to be the best it can be. So I've kind of leaped in with the aim and the hope, and just on the basis of I'm going to do it right. I'm going to listen to feedback. I'm going to give people what they want. I'm going to get consistent systems together, and just follow through and take the same learnings that from my game store franchise and put that into practice here. And whether I manage to catch the big guys in the industry or not, I don't need to focus solely on that. I just need to focus solely on doing the best job I can, and kind of living up to people's expectations and doing all the right things, and then hopefully it all kind of come hand in hand. So Channel Fireball obviously a big part of getting us off the ground initially. Like they are a well-known brand that has been operating in this industry as one of the bigger brands for 10 plus years, and I'm a little nobody over in New Zealand who wants to open a grading company in multiple countries in the world. So it was definitely a smart choice to pair up with somebody that's got a bit of trust and experience in the industry on an international level. Otherwise, we're just a small New Zealand company.
Right.
Pairing up with Channel Fireball has been fantastic, and then we've paired up with Good Games, and we've opened in 3 countries now, and we're opening in a 4th one next month. So it's really helped to kind of propel and power forward my vision and what I'm trying to do here.
I really appreciate the fact that you mentioned sometimes where it's out of your hands. If people, like you mentioned, if the big fish want to bite, then they bite. But the best I can do right now is basically just do the best damn job that I can do, and let the chips fall where they may. That's a mentality that I always appreciate, and it's great to see it in other people as well. And sometimes that's what I have to lean on. And ultimately, sometimes if you do things the right way, you work hard, things will fall where they may, and more often than not, it's going to be a positive outcome. So I know that I've been, I have within arm's reach is my Star Wars CCG collection. I've got some foil Daughter of Skywalker,
Yeah.
Endor expansion Decipher Star Wars CCG cards that I am waiting to get graded, and I have honestly considered. I have legitimately considered sending out my premier first edition Vaders and my Obi-Wans to get graded. I don't know if you guys do Star Wars CCG.
No. So we only kind of do the main ones, and we're starting to open up more. So we do, we started with Magic, Flesh and Blood, Pokemon, and Dragon Ball Super initially, and then we rolled out MetaZoo shortly after that, and rolling out Digimon at the moment. And we're starting to kind of one by one roll out the other games. Just making sure that we get good training and industry experts for each game system before we roll them out. We don't want to just grade everything and say, hey, we can do everything, and then all of a sudden we're making all these mistakes and catalog errors and stuff with the cards. So we're making sure we do take it step by step, and just roll out one game at a time after receiving extensive advice and testing from experts and within that game itself.
Okay, because there is a demand out there. All 7 of us are desperately waiting to get our Star Wars cards graded. So when that opens up, I will be sending you a box, my friend, and I want them all graded. So I can't wait.
And your 6 friends, which
yeah, if they're still my friends by then. But I'm honestly, I'm very, very excited for you and your company in this, because I've always found the challenge, especially like you mentioned with the 2 others, is oftentimes it's either massively expensive and not worth it to that degree, and otherwise I'm just thinking that it's never worth the value and untrustworthy, or the turnaround time is like 11 to 12 months to see my card back. So I understand that there's a demand and everything, but I wish you very much success with that, and I think that so far it's going well. But I have to ask, do you grade some of the cards, or is that given up to another authority on that?
Yeah. I mean, I do. I have graded cards. Generally, I don't. I sometimes sit in on the checkpoint 1. So within our circuit, there's checkpoint 1, which is basically after the card's already been graded by someone else, a second person goes over the card and kind of checkpoints it off. Looks at the markings that the grade has made, and then looks through the card over the card to see if anything's missing from the grade sheet, and then checks on what they've marked as the marks, etc., that they've identified, and kind of checks that they agree with those. So it's sort of a second look. So I sit on that from time to time, and I want to make sure I'm always jumping in on at least checkpoint in the different offices throughout the world every couple of months to sort of make sure that that the grading standards and the stuff coming out of the grading room is very consistent and sort of stays aligned to our grading standards. So yeah.
I had mentioned, I think you were on, I forgot which event it was. It was one of the either calling or nationals or whatever, but I saw that you had all your equipment and such was graded. And the comment I had made, as I said, if anybody ever wants to question Matt Rogers' humility, he graded his cards only a 9. So
I mean, I didn't grade any of those cards, so to the grade of the no. Yeah, I mean, as part of our system as well, everything's just through barcodes and a serial number. So when an order gets submitted to us, it's put into a grading. So it's put into a grading box, and then barcodes are printed off. So every space saver or top loader or whatever, a barcode's placed onto that, and a barcode's placed onto the box. And nowhere on anything does it have any names. So no grader ever knows whose cards they're grading. All they have is numbers. So everything is graded very fairly throughout that. And also within PCG, there's a rule that if I want my cards graded, Australian office has to do it. If an Australian staff member wants their card graded, or or US or whatever, they have to have that card graded either in the US or in New Zealand. So to just sort of take out any of the conflict of interest there. But yeah. So I mean, I submitted kind of my favorite cards, or the cards I was going to play with, and the grades I got were the grades I got. So
Well,
a few of my things are 9. There's a couple of 9.5s there. I think I have a 9.5 stalagmite and a 9.5 time skippers. So
there you go.
yeah.
Well, there, like I mentioned, that it's cool to see, and I do wish you further success with it, as it's already well underway, and it's good to see that people
Thank
are
you.
still trusting you with it. And again, I know that establishing a reputation in that field could be challenging, but I think that,
Yeah, definitely.
like you mentioned, the mentality of just do the job correctly, and people will eventually come around, and success is a natural consequence of just doing the job correctly. And I mean, you've already made a name for yourself as the world #1 player in Flesh and Blood. Your card grading company is taking off, and that's awesome. But is there any other aspirations that you have now as a Flesh and Blood player? I mean, is it world championships that you want to knock down? Like, what is the next echelon for Matt Rogers?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I'm going to be going pretty hard for Worlds. Like, I would, imagine just imagine that etched into history. I mean, there's definitely a few years down the track, I'm probably going to be some nobody. So there's definitely like some, just how cool would it be to have that etched into history that you were the champion of the world at something once, So yeah, I definitely would love to be the world champion, or the first world champion. Or a Pro Tour champion, something along that line. So I am going to be, pretty dedicated to try and achieve that. It's an incredibly hard feat, and you have to not just be playing at the top level and make sure that you're well beyond prepared, but also have a massive amount of luck on the day to be able to do it. But I'm going to give it all I've got. That's definitely an aspiration of mine, and yeah.
Damn right, Matt Rogers. I like that. I like that. I like to hear that there's still some gusto in there. There's still some rungs to climb to get to the top. So.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Well, keep it up, my friend. Again, just success with the company, success on the battlefield as well. We do have another segment called Go Again. Will you join us for Go Again, Matt Rogers?
Yeah, I'm always good for going again. Let's go.
Damn right. All right. We will be right back, ladies and gentlemen, with the segment called Go Again right after this product feature from BCW Supplies. As always, we're very thankful for our friends at BCW Supplies for hooking us up with some excellent swag that I want to share with you guys. Today's product is the Deck Vault 100. Deck Vault 100. It is a wicked-ass case for your deck, and it does pretty much what you need it to do. It's not one of those gigantic ones that you lug around. It could carry like 100 decks and like 9,000 dice in case you want to open a casino somewhere. No, this is a different story. This is quite compact. It is the Deck Vault 100. This is the leatherette version, and I'll show you just how this works, because this bad boy quite frankly impressed me a little bit. First of all, the case itself, quite smooth. It's got that leathery feel, and it's very secure. As you can see, I'm shaking it like this. It's a magnetic clasp, but nothing's happening. And I'm not just saying this because it's empty. This bad boy is full, and I'll tell you what is going on in here. So this is what I like most about it, because typically the deck boxes that I would bring, I like them small and relatively compact, but then I still have a, pocket full of dice. Not this time, because fiddling around in your pockets, getting dice, losing them all around, you want everything kind of consolidated into one nice box. Well, one slides out, boom, there is the deck that you need. Fits about 100 cards, no problem. They're all sleeved and ready to go. There's my Katsu list if ever he becomes relevant again. But now that, other than that, you still have this little drawer here that is where you put the dice. So fill this bad boy up with all the dice you need, your counters, everything. Hey, you want to jam some, counters on some auras that Prism's jamming out with shimmers? You could do that. You could also jam your deck in here, walk around, no big deal. And I'm telling you, it just looks nice. It's compact. It's clean. It's the Deck Vault 100. Check out BCW Supplies online. Use the code ISP10. Get 10% off. 10% off. Any order. All your orders. There's no limit. Keep going. I'm telling you, this is really good stuff. This is really good stuff. I am sold on it. I will be taking this to the next tournament that I'll be playing this weekend. This is the Deck Vault 100. BCW Supplies. Use ISP10. Get 10% off. All right, it is time to go wide on Matt Rogers as we go again See what we did there? On a series of questions, rapid fire style. But don't be shy, Matt. If you got something to say, just say it. So if you are ready to go again, we can go again, Matt Rogers.
Yeah, I'll remove a counter from the chamber. Let's go.
Let's do it. All right. My first question, my always favorite first question. Now, I know that we were joking around a bit at the U.S. Nationals, and I had to ask, does Matt Rogers dance? Now, I'm not going to ask you that on as the first question, but the first question is, what is Matt Rogers' hidden talent?
Hidden talent. Hidden talent. Oh, yeah, okay. This you just hit me with this. I don't know. Hidden talent.
Oh, I know.
We're gonna have to cut this section. That's
you're on the hot seat now, buddy.
Yeah, that's a bit of a hot seat question. I honestly don't know how to answer that. I mean, my talents are pretty out there in the open. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like, it's not a whole lot hidden.
That's that. You know what? That's a good answer. And like, I've had some interesting ones in the past. One of them, I think, was like Tannen mentioned he was like the world's greatest Mario Golf player. And,
okay.
I'm not saying that they all have to translate into like worldly success. Like mine is I have an encyclopedia of everything Star Wars. But is that ever gonna, am I ever gonna get like elected to office because I know, what cell block Princess Leia was incarcerated in on the Death Star? No, it's not gonna get me anywhere. But Matt Rogers, if all your talents are on display, man, that is good enough.
Yeah, all my talents are on display. Honestly, I'm this is me. This is what I love. The card game industry, everything around there, and the community and stuff. That's what gets me up in the morning, and that's my whole thing. That's kind of
All right, we'll say humility. We'll just say humility. No. Question number 2 is coming from a good friend of mine by the name of Tommy Fresh, host of the Fresh and Buds podcast. Awesome person, awesome dude. He's asking you, what is your overall take on the health and longevity of Flesh and Blood leading into Pro Tour New Jersey, which he then has to quantify as being the greatest state in the union? New Jersey is not the greatest state in the union, but how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think the game is very, very healthy. I think we're just seeing more and more content creators popping up almost every week these days. There's so much content. That used to be a big problem, I think, with Flesh and Blood, and something that scared me a little bit earlier on is that there wasn't a huge amount of information and content and stuff out there. But now, through the likes of yourself and so many very talented and driven people, there is so much out there to get involved in and to watch and to enjoy and to be entertained by, and I think that's really, really healthy for the game. So I think that, coupled with just the fact that we have such an incredible community, I've played games and I've run game stores, so I've kind of been involved in a lot of different card game and sort of tabletop communities over the years, and I do think that Flesh and Blood has something very particular and very special about it. And I think that is a huge power and a passion behind the game and the heroes and the lore and your deck and everything like that. This huge passion that people have for this game, I think that is what's going to stand the test of time. I think that's what's going to carry the game forward. So I think that that's a very healthy state to be in. And I really do honestly believe in Flesh and Blood. I believe in the company. I believe in James White, and I believe in the people that surround this that have all gotten behind this game. So I think that Flesh and Blood's in a great place. More and more people are playing it. It's hard to name that many game stores that don't carry it these days, and more and more people are getting involved. And I think with this 2022 organized play season, and $1 million worth of events and all these pro tours and call-ins, I think more and more people are getting involved and kind of coming over and trying out the game and trying out the sort of competitive circuit and whatnot. So I think the game's just going to go from strength to strength at this point.
I agree. I like it. All right, this one coming from the world's #1 ranked Mario Golf 64 player, Tannen Grace. And he asks, besides yourself, who do you believe is the world's best Flesh and Blood player?
Well, single. He wants a name. A single. No, honestly, there's so much talent. There's so much talent coming out of Australia and America and Singapore and stuff. I've honestly watched and played against so many incredible people. There's no way. There's honestly honestly, from my heart, there is no way I can give you a single name there. I think a lot of the guys that I'm testing with and talking to and watching stuff, there is some incredible talent everywhere. And I think there's going to be the Pro Tour is going to show us some of the best. But yeah, I definitely can't single it down to a name. This game's still a little bit fresh and a little bit new, and there's so many talented people involved in it that I don't think you can come down to a name of the best player, or I would even struggle to name your top 5 players in the world or anything like that. I think that the pool's a lot bigger than that.
All right, but we can agree on one thing: it is not Tannen Grace.
It is definitely not Tannen Grace. I'll be honest. Great guy though. Definitely one of my world's top favorite people in Flesh and Blood. I'll give him that. I love Tannen. He's a lot of fun. And commentating with him at the at nationals was just a load of fun, and he made that experience. I mean, with yourself as well, you guys made that experience incredible.
I appreciate that.
I have a lot of time for that, human.
I appreciate that. I mean, we do have a quota on this program where we have to at least have one dig at Tannen Grace per episode. So quota met once again. We've got a hot streak going. And a little known fact, ladies and gentlemen, if you do see. If you go back to U.S. Nationals and you go check out the broadcast of Tannen and Matt Rogers together, the very dashing-looking sport coat that Matt Rogers was wearing was actually my sport coat. So
yeah.
I have...
really? Was it? You've definitely never mentioned that before.
I've easily mentioned it. That is how I got you on this show. I said, I'm going to come back with a favor one time. But
go on and on and on about it. Yep.
After you win worlds, that sport coat is going on eBay as a game-worn Matt Rogers. It's like the Matt Rogers spring tunic is what it's going to be. So,
honestly, I mean, I've learned a valuable lesson. If I need a pen or something, you are the last person I'm asking. I'm never buying anything off you ever again.
Forever. Next question. This one coming from Collision Point on Reddit. Not Reddit, on Twitter. And this actually, you alluded to this a little bit before because you were mentioning you were messing around with Dash. And the question here is Dash competitive right now? If you don't see metrics in the next set, then she may not receive any support in the end of the year with an additional supplemental set. So if there's no, mechanologist support coming up soon or whatnot, is she just sort of DOA a little bit here, or is Dash sort of secretly good?
Yeah, I think Dash has some legs. I mean, Tarek laughs at me every time I say it and teases me about it, or the rest of it, saying that this, you're trying to hold up this one deck or whatever. But no, I honestly think Dash has a very unique play style, and it is a bit of a meta deck though. It is very good in certain meta games, and we just haven't had the right meta game for Dash for a little while now. But I think that if some things change, if things fall out of popularity a little bit or are pushed out by other decks and stuff, I do think that there's definitely a point where Dash will likely come back in and be a top contender again. I think that it has some really good matchups, but the problem with a very particular play style like Dash is it has some great matchups, but also some unwinnable ones or very, very bad ones. So it really depends on kind of what strategies people are on at the moment, because if people are playing things that are very good against kind of set up decks like Dash, it can be very hard to win. So I think Dash is always going to have its place in the metagame, and I think it's going to come in and out of favor over the years, is my opinion. And I wouldn't counter out. I wouldn't, I mean, I guess I did a video where I did the kind of funeral scene with Dash, but that is a joke. You don't have to put her in the grave yet. Like, she is going to come back.
Yeah, I mean, don't pull the plug because there's still a heartbeat there, right? So
yeah, 100%. But I think right now in this meta she doesn't quite work. I tried very hard to get her to work in this meta game, but unfortunately I didn't get over the hill. Maybe somebody else will. Maybe somebody's figured something out there, and that'll be really cool. I would love to see that. But yeah, personally, I wasn't able to crack it on this one.
No worries. All right, next one coming from a very, very heavy hitter in the Flesh and Blood community, Yuki Lee Bender, a champion in her own right as well, asking, do you think there is a clear, quote-unquote, best deck right now, or do you feel Viscerai, Starvo, Prism, the Triangle of Doom, are relatively close in power level. You spoke about this earlier, but if you were to say that there's just a flat out best, what would that be?
I think Stavo is the best deck of this format. Yeah, I think Stavo kind of earns his name as the best deck at the moment. I think that when Stavo's targeted and there's a target on his back, these other two decks, Prism and Viserai, can get close in games, and can even be favored against Stavo and whatnot. But I think overall Stavo does kind of has the best overall strategy against the format, and ability to kind of win game, percentagely just have a better win rate than any other deck. So I do think that he's kind of the boogeyman of the format, the best deck at the moment.
I thought you were the boogeyman. No, we decided that you were not the boogeyman.
No, we're not doing that.
We're not doing it. All right. Next question coming from Session Blood on Twitter asking, and I guess these are all going to have, they're all from the same menu more or less, but they're going to seem a little deja vu. But do you think do you think Pro Tour number 1 will be won by the big three, or they call it the big 3.5, saying that Chain's
sort of in there. Yeah. Okay.
The other, or is there some kind of a meta breaker that has a chance? I mean, ultimately, we know that the big three are the big three. The Triangle of Doom will always be there. Like the way I describe it, I'm like, look, it's a triangle, whether it's an equilateral, a scalene, or a isosceles. It's still a freaking triangle. It's just the angles are different. But in this case, is there some sort of other way to perhaps break this that you think that has a chance? Even like if we were to sort of warp this question a little bit, to change it a little bit. Sorry, Session Blood, but
you didn't quite ask the right question.
Yeah, sorry, guys. Try to give it a little bit of extra. I'm putting some steak spice on this, but what if it's not? Let's just say if it's not one of these three, what would possibly have a nice kick at the can?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, if the format stays like it is now and gets very solved, then I think it's probably most likely going to be one of the three. But if the format changes a little bit, like there's a Living Legend or something, I think there's maybe 6 or 7 different contending heroes that could take it out. So I think it could be really interesting. But I mean, in saying that, even if the format's exactly the same, as I sort of said earlier, there is going to be like 30 plus teams of people that are really focusing in on this Pro Tour and trying to crack it. So, maybe somebody is going to come along with this Levia deck that's just completely left field and nobody really, was prepared for it or understood, and it just wiped everything out. It's definitely possible that another thing comes along. But yeah, my pick would be that if the format stayed exactly as it is now, it is most likely to be one of the kind of top 3.5 decks. And if it changes, I think there's every possibility that it could be anything.
Levia, you are a dreamer, Mr. Matt Rogers.
Okay, maybe that was a stretch.
Yeah, that is absolutely dreamland for you.
Yeah.
This one coming from, you're talking about senseis. This is my sensei, Mr. Dalen Mack, and this is one of the things we practice together a lot, and he is an incredibly good player. And the go-to phrase for Mr. Dalen Mack is always, "Come on, Flake, one more game. Yeah.
One more game. I mean, that's definitely me. You should ask Aaron Newson.
Well, this is a nice prelude to what the question is from Dalen Mack, asking, how many games a day do you play?
I mean, not that many. I don't play every day. Realistically, I play maybe once a week, probably even less most of the time. I do have a lot of things going on, so I kind of don't get a whole lot of, kind of two or so hour blocks in where I can just play games. So yeah, definitely not a huge amount, but before an event, I'll sit down and try to nut some things out. A lot of my stuff's on theory. I am often talking about Flesh and Blood with friends all the time. I got group chats with Rob Seigel and Tarek, and a lot of the best players, and I'm constantly like throwing back and forth ideas with people, and trying to come up with different ways to attack, or strategies or ways to play matchups or to attack certain decks and stuff like that. So I'm constantly theory crafting. I do a lot of that, that is definitely daily. And then oftentimes I'll turn up to a tournament with that theory craft and roll the dice on whether I was right or wrong.
All right, you hear that, Dalen Mack? Get off my back, okay? There was a time once where Dalen we're all together, we're chatting. He's like, "Man, I had a dream last night, and I was playing against a chain player, and they played Seeds of Agony, and I called the judge because I know it was banned, and I got a warning." I'm like, you need to you need some time away, man. Like,
I think at that point it's become, if you're dreaming about that.
Yeah, it's getting there. All right, last question for Mr. Matt Rogers. Again, we're circling back, baby. Does Matt Rogers dance?
Does Matt Rogers dance? No, is a hard no on that one. My coordination, like hand-eye coordination, like anything in terms of like throwing a ball or dancing or anything, honestly, I am terrible. Like I just that is not my thing. Like I was never good at any sports. I could never. I'm sure if I danced, I would stand all over anybody's toes all over the place. Like I'm a bit of a klutz. I've never been good at that sort of thing. At a wedding or at some some sort of things, like I might get up and boogie a little bit, but it's not going to be much, and it's not going to be a sight that you want to see at all. So
oh boy. All right, this is a little addendum to that question. If you don't dance, I mean, I'm trying to organize a karaoke outing at either Pro Tour or at Indianapolis. So I always ask people what their go-to karaoke song is, but if you don't dance, are you the one singing? Is that what's going on?
No, I'm pretty tone deaf as well. That's I can't sing for sure. That's not where my skill set lies either. I'll definitely come along to a karaoke night. We did a massive karaoke thing after nationals, and we crammed over 50 people into one tiny room. There's a video somewhere on the fan page that somebody posted of it. It was crazy. We literally crammed 50 people into a tiny karaoke room that's built for like, I don't know, 8 at max. And we just had the mic going around, and we all just it was a lot of fun and a lot of craziness.
That sounds awesome.
So I'm definitely in. I'll come along.
I'm in. I like it. All right, that is a Matt Rogers guarantee, my friend. It has been an honest pleasure, and you have done this podcast a great service by just sharing all your wisdom and your good personality and everything. You are an icon
You're way
of this.
Too kind for
I'm speaking the truth, my friend. Like I don't just I'm not here to, like I said, I called in my favor. So this is it. Now I'm just speaking from the heart, buddy. So it really does mean a lot that you come on the show and what you do for the Flesh and Blood community, and I wish you immense success to beat the living hell out of Tarek at Worlds. That's what I want to see.
I mean, for sure, that's happening.
Okay, perfect.
No, honestly, thank you, and thank you for what you do for this community as well. The content that you're making is incredible, and you're really just an all-around pretty good guy, except I just don't borrow your jacket. But but it's a lot of fun. You've made this very easy and very smooth today as well. So just thanks. Big thanks for what you do and who you are.
No worries.
Keep doing it.
For all of those out there who do not necessarily know how to get more content from Matt Rogers, you write for Charitable Fireball. You have content all over the place. You are kind of a ghost on Twitter, but if there are somebody who wants to go ahead and get in touch with you or get more of your content, where can we get more Matt Rogers?
Yeah, Twitter's new for me. Tarek Patel actually made me download it and set up a Twitter account like only a few months ago. So I don't really log on to that much. I'm not a big sort of socials person for social media, but I'm on Facebook. I do go on Facebook pretty much every day. So, can get in touch with me on Facebook. Anybody that comments on any of the videos or any of the content I put out, I make, I definitely try to make an effort to answer questions and to talk to people about it and stuff like that. I'm not on, I think somebody mentioned before there that people were asking questions on Channel Fireball's YouTube channel that I wasn't seeing. I'm not super on there. It's always best to comment on Facebook. So I post up every FAB with Matt on the fan page, and then people that comment on there, I get back to every single person for sure, and love to just answer your questions and talk about FAB and the stuff that I was talking about in the video and whatnot. So that's definitely the easiest way for me. I'm sorry, I'm I'm a little bit of a I'm a little bit of a dinosaur with technology and social media and such. It's never been never been a huge point for me, but I am on Facebook.
It's all good. I mean, like you said, you're a busy guy.
And I'm on Twitter now. Tarek got me on Twitter, so I probably log into it maybe once every 2 weeks, but I'm on there.
Hey, you're there. I mean, that's exactly. If there's the one good thing that Tarek has ever done this year, it's put you on Twitter. So that's his good deed for the year, and he can go back to sending you hate mail and reminding you that he's nipping at your heels. Mr. Matt Rogers, thank you so much for doing the show. And to everybody who listens, again, don't forget, you're not losing if you're learning. Keep playing the game. You might win. To all our Patreon. Yes, we have a Patreon. For all our Patreon wonderful subscribers, thank you for supporting the show. Again, we'll never hide anything behind a paywall, but your support does mean the world to me. Catch you next week, ladies and gentlemen, on the Instant Speed Podcast.